So let's now do another example. We have 8 cubic feet that we would like to turn into cubic yards. Now, volume is the exact same idea as area, but it's just a little bit more tricky to draw. So I'm going to try it out here. We have 8 cubic feet. Now again, there's not anything inherently in the words that we shouldn't be using for our advantage. 8 cubic to me sounds like a cube, so that means I have a cube that has a foot for its measurement. Well, it must be a foot on each side because a foot is a length. So if I sketch that out real quick, let's draw a little cube here. That's how I like to draw a little cube. And so 1 cube, if I had a foot on either side, we'd want to have one that talked about how much it was going sideways. I'll put a foot for talking about how much it's going up to down, and then I'll put a foot for talking about how much it's going back to front. And then that reminds me that volume is nothing more than length times width times height. So sure enough, the volume of this must be 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot, which gets me 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, and foot times foot is going to be cubic feet, so feet cubed. So I have 1 cubic foot is exactly what I've drawn right here. It's a cube where I've measured across using 1 foot. Okay, so I have 8 of these. It says I have 8 of these and I'd like to turn them into cubic yards. So let's look at how I could draw that. If I had 8 of these little cubes and I wanted to organize them, I would probably want to organize them in something that resembled a box or a cube. So I'm going to try to stack some of these. I've got one here. I'm going to put another one below it, I think. So we'll put that one here. That works pretty good. Let's put another to the side. So that'll be 3 of them. And then I can put another below that. That'll be 4 of them. And then I need 8. So we'll put 5 of them. And we'll put 6 of them. And 7 of them, and we'll imagine there's a little 8th one back there, like a little Rubik's Cube, so that's 8 cubic feet what I've just drawn here, 8 cubic feet. And we'll keep that off to the side, 8 cubic feet. Now, if I want to look at how many cubic yards that is, let's sketch a cubic yard. Well, a cubic yard is going to be significantly bigger because a yard is bigger. So I'm going to go across a yard, and then I'm going to go back a yard, and I'm going to go down a yard. So let's call this about a yard. This is a cubic yard right here, where I have 1 yard for my lengths, 1 yard for my height, and 1 yard for my depth. So that's a cubic yard. Okay. Now, if I want to relate these two, I don't know how to relate cubic feet and cubic yards quite yet, but I can relate feet and yards. I could have, instead of measuring with a yardstick, measured with 3 rulers that were a foot long each. And that would have made my measurements look like this. I would have needed 3 of them going across. There's 1, 2, 3 places I would have placed my ruler. And then going down, I would have had 1, 2, 3. That's 3 places for my ruler there on the side, middle, and bottom. And then 3 places here, 1, 2, 3. Now let's use those natural breaks to kind of section off this picture. So if I do that, I'm going to take this, I'm going to section this across like I'm cutting it with a cheese slicer. And then I'm going to do that on the sides. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to cut it across like I'm doing it with a cheese slicer. And then I'm going to do this one over here. So I cut it with a cheese slicer. And notice what we've created. If we were to do the exact same build, but use a ruler instead of a yardstick, we would have needed, it looks like 3 groups of 3 groups, I think 27. I think there's 27 cubes here it would have created. There would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cubes in the front, and then another 9 right behind it, and then another 9 right behind that. That's 27. So there's 27 cubic feet in a cubic yard. Let's write that down. 1 cubic yard, which would be 3 repetitions of yard, is equal to 27 cubic feet, which would be 3 repetitions of feet. Well, notice that this is the same conversion as what we had been using for the other example with area. We started with 1 yard and recognized that's the same thing as 3 feet. And we can always take this, which is a number 1, a hidden number 1, something divided by itself. We can take this and we can multiply it by itself and still get 1, and multiply it by itself again and still get 1. So we could use this and just simply multiply it by itself 3 times. That gets me 1 yard times 1 yard times 1 yard over 3 feet times 3 feet times 3 feet, which is going to get me 1 cubic yard is equal to, oh, I'll put a 3, not a 2. There's 3 repetitions. And then there'd be 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. And then feet times feet times feet would be cubic feet. So we have a conversion factor now. 1 cubic yard can convert us to 27 cubic feet. Okay, so let's figure out what this 8 cubic feet is then. I can section that off in my picture. Notice that's going to be this cube right here, this cube right here, maybe this cube right here, and this cube right here, and then the ones behind it as well. So if I was going to guess how much space that took up, it looks like it's taking up about a fourth, maybe a third, somewhere around there. So let's just keep that in the back of our mind as we do this conversion. We're now starting with 8 cubic feet. This is what we were given in the problem. We are multiplying this by a relationship between feet and yards. And I'm going to put the feet on the bottom. So it's 3 feet per 1 yard. But before I do that multiplication, I need to make the units match. So I'm going to take this entire fraction and turn it from a relationship of length into a relationship of volume. I'm going to cube it. I'm going to make those dimensions multiply by each other. So that's going to give me, let's see, 8 cubic feet times 1 cubic yard, because the ones times each other are going to get 1 and the yards times each other are going to get 3 repetitions of yards. And then in the denominator, we have 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. And we have feet times feet times feet is cubic feet. So I can then say that multiplying this straight across, we're going to have a cancellation of the cubic feet. That gets me 8 cubic yards over 27, no unit. And if we work that through in our calculator, let's see what we get. I'm going to pull up a little calculator here. So we're going to get 8 divided by 27, and remember we're thinking this is going to be something around a quarter or a third, and it looks like we get 0.29, 0.3-ish, which is exactly where we would want it to be, right? That's about a little higher than a quarter, which would be 0.25, and less than a third, which would be 0.3 repeating. So this is going to be 0.3 cubic yards. That's going to be the answer we get when we converted from cubic feet to cubic yards. So what do we need to include in our work if we're going to show our instructor everything? Well, I would say at minimum we need to include this, right? Where we are starting off with the truth from the statement. We are using a relationship that we know to be true and showing how we used that relationship to create a new relationship with volume. Once we've got those relationships, it's just canceling of units and organizing our work so that we change the meaning, change the appearance of our measurement without changing the meaning.